guys, what's going on? This is Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. Today I have two guests on. Today we're here to talk about the meta, the state of the meta in Clash Royale. Also here to talk about 5 cards that I've identified. I've used my expert knowledge and gone into the meta and dissected and analyzed the game in every single metric. And I figured out 5 cards that are causing a lot of frustration and happiness, I guess. A very polarizing selection of cards. And I brought on 2 YouTuber guests to discuss them with me. Who better to join the channel than SirTag and NyteOwl? Fellas, how you doing?
Doing okay, Ash. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. I'm super excited to have you guys here. I've been doing like these 2 YouTubers specials. We did one with Shane and Bufferetti, did one with Legendary Ray. Happy to have you guys on to kind of jam out and talk about these cards. Tag, what's up with you, man?
I've just been chilling, taking a look at the new meta and trying to figure out what counters the Elixir Golem.
Yes, that's going to be one of the cards that we definitely talk about here. Just to, to go ahead and throw them all out there to give all the goods right out the bat of the video here. We're going to talk about Wall Breakers, talk about Witch, talk about Elixir Golem, talk about Fisherman, and talk about Executioner are the 5 cards that we're going to discuss here. And a lot of people might identify some of these cards, if not all, as toxic. My question to my viewers is, which one of these cards, if any, do you find the most toxic / annoying / DEFCON 1, we need to make a move here. But guys, let me just start out by asking you both how you like the state of the meta right now. What do you think of this meta? It's certainly different than it was last month, to say the least. Tag, go ahead and start out, man.
Yeah, so right now I feel like the meta is the least skillful it's ever been inside of Clash Royale, unfortunately. And that's primarily due to one card, the Elixir Golem. I don't think that there's really any counterplay at all to the deck that is Elixir Golem, Sparky, Electro Wizard, Baby Dragon, Fisherman, Log, Poison. That deck is overpowered. There's nothing you can do about it. They drop supporting cards in the back, then they pressure with an Elixir Golem in front. The Elixir Golem explodes, and even if you have Inferno Tower and you're a much better player than them, you just simply can't defend against it. The main issue with the game right now is if the Elixir Golem is overpowered, for 7 Elixir, a Night Witch plus Elixir Golem, you need to be up 4 Elixir to be able to counter that in theory, right? And it's not possible to be at 11 Elixir. So when it's overpowered, it's just a completely oppressive card in the meta. It just destroys everything, and it was really unfortunate timing for the Night Witch buff at the exact same time, because after the Golemites pop, then the Night Witch bats are still going to stay alive, and there's really nothing you can do when there's so many of them. The game is just over if you're not much better than your player.
So spoiler alert, I think you're going to have a problem with the Elixir Golem. But
yeah.
So what do you think of the meta overall, though? Like, besides Elixir Golem, anything, like just the overall state of things? You said it was the least skilled meta ever.
I mean, if you play Grand Challenges, especially later on, you will play that deck 9 out of 10 games. I think that actually is the meta.
What about the Royal Recruit meta, though? That was pretty low skill, right?
It's not near as oppressive as this one, because the Royal Recruits, before, you were able to use like Musketeer or use a ranged unit to kill it. And I felt like you could still dictate the flow of the game, whether it was like super, super slow. You didn't have like the situation where I was literally feeling that I could lose to a 3K player, or I could maybe have like my sister or parent come on and be like, hey, like go and drop cards in the back and then drop an Elixir Golem in front. I was actually considering this for a video. Like I was so adamant about how easy this deck was that I was considering that for a video.
Okay, so you're ranking the meta pretty low. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that you're not a fan.
Yeah, this is my least favorite meta inside of Clash Royale.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, based on my Twitter and Reddit, would agree with you there. NyteOwl, go ahead and give your take on the meta right now.
Oh wow, that hurts to actually hear that it's the lowest skill meta that you've ever seen, Tag. Only because this is the only time that I've ever like breached the top 10,000 in the world. This is the only time I actually on stream made it up to top 3,000 in the world.
Dude, feels bad, man, right? Tag's like, I hate this meta. It's so low skill. And Mike's like,
he's basically saying I am completely low skill, which I kind of agree with on some level. But this meta has been one of the most exciting metas for me. I've actually started 2 separate accounts just so I can play more of the Elixir Golem challenges, just because I think it's fun. I think it's fun to see new decks out there. And because there are so many people using Witch, there's so many people using the Elixir Golem, so many people using Wall Breakers, people have been forced to change their decks to counter those types of things, and I love those types of changes. Whenever the game changes, then it mixes things up and breaks up the monotony that people face so often in the game. And so that's the only reason I love this meta so much. It's not so much whether I win or lose, it's just to see something different. And that's what we've seen. I think they've done a great job of that so far.
Dude, this was not planned to have, you guys have such different opinions on the state of the game and the meta, but it's really, I'm really a big fan of it. I think I fall kind of right in between you guys, honestly. I think that I agree with you, NyteOwl, personally, that I like the switch up. I like that things feel fresh and new and different. And, although it's getting a little repetitive with Elixir Golem at tourney standard and Witch all over ladder, but you are starting to see more Mega Knight and more adjustments to the Witch, especially on ladder. Now, at the same time, I think that there ought to probably be an emergency nerf for the Witch. I just think that she's just too powerful right now. Like she really does hit like a musketeer, but with more HP and skeletons. It's insane to me, and a little splash too. But that's neither here nor there. Let's actually talk about those cards specifically here, and I'll throw it back to you guys, and feel free to talk over each other too. It's kind of an open dialogue conversation. But let's start with the Witch, right? So what do you guys think about the Witch? Let's start off with, is she game-breaking OP? And if yes, does there need to be here, the 18th of October, does there need to be an emergency nerf? NyteOwl, you can start this time.
I think so. The thing with the Witch, I mean, she is extremely powerful, but at the same time, your opponent's running Witch as well. And I found that after I've been playing with it a little bit more, she's not that tough to counter as long as you have poison or something in your deck. You're usually able to counter it with your Witch, and so it really doesn't actually end up being that big of detriment. That being said, she could use a minor nerf, but I don't think it's an emergency nerf state. I think it's super fun for this month to even have Witch in the meta because it is the spooky month, and I think she goes along with the arena. And I actually love seeing those types of cards in the arena because it just looks good. It looks awesome, and I'm all about looks mostly when I play. Not so much whether I win or lose. As long as it looks good, I can play her.
I got you. Tag. What do you think about that? What do you think about
Witch?
You didn't mention Witch in your first kind of synopsis of the meta.
Yeah. So the Witch. First day playing it, man, I had so much fun. I was beating people much better than me consistently. I played against Luck Dubs. I took his tower with a Witch, and he didn't even think it was going to take the tower, but it took it from full HP all the way down, and I looked back at the replay, and I had no understanding of how I had taken it until I watched the game. So, that crazy type of gameplay doesn't really happen when there's just a stagnant meta, and I do agree with NyteOwl from that perspective that it's really fun to have changes in the game, but when it happens,
chaos is amazing.
Yeah, no, for a week or so, I love it. It's awesome. Which right now is an overpowered card in my opinion. The biggest issue with it is it's literally a musketeer now. It hits harder than a musketeer if you guys don't already know that, and it spawns skeletons. So its damage per second is harder than a musketeer, and it's going to spawn skeletons to distract mini P.E.K.K.A.s, all these other cards that are a huge issue. So at a minor bit of HP, it poses a much bigger threat than any other ranged unit. There's really no reason to run musketeer. There's no reason to run Electro Wizard. You're just really going to see a lot of people running Witch in the deck, because if you're running Electro Wizard and you're trying to win a battle at the river, well, guess what? You're just going to get stomped on because you can't ever compare to the damage per second of it. So when that happens, then the power creep comes over, and because there's no other ranged unit in the game, then we fall into a meta that NyteOwl would not like, or most people would not like after a long period of time of staying in the same stagnant zone. So I think it's okay for right now. It's not an extremely oppressive card. You can counter it with Fireball plus Log. You can go for a Poison plus Zap, and now that kills it. It used to not. That's really cool. Valkyrie kills Witch as well. So there are ways of combating the Witch. I think it is overpowered, doesn't need an emergency nerf. I could see it happening, but it's not something that's game-breaking. Hey, this game is completely ruined like the Elixir Golem does to the game. So, yeah.
Very interesting. So I seem to be the most aggressive on the witch. Maybe I'm being too hard, or you guys are making me second guess myself. But I think that, Tag, you made the point that I've been trying to make here on the channel, is that to me, the witch feels like it's not so much the power, the fact that she's being used right now, 44% of matches in grand challenges. That's insane. Even more than Elixir Golem.
You go, girl. Oh.
Yeah, only card that's more popular right now at the time of this recording is Poison. Well, who would have figured, right? Go figure. The one counter to Witch, right?
The counter.
Yeah. So, I think that, listen, it's already over halfway through the month. So is there going to be an emergency nerf? Probably not. Does it deserve one? I think probably it does, but now it's only a matter of a couple weeks. But either way, I do kind of want to reiterate that point that Tag made, where it's just boxing everything else. Musketeers at 4% use rate. Magic Archers at 5% use rate. Archers are at 2% use rate. Like, no one's using any of the other cards because it's all about the Witch and the Night Witch. Exactly. So exactly. Wizards at 2% use rate on grand challenges. So yeah, wow. I definitely do kind of agree with both of you guys to an extent on that one. Let's move on to the other card that no one has mentioned so far, and that is the Wall Breakers. So Wall Breakers are a card that a lot of people, also me, myself included, think that you get a little bit too much value there, especially the death damage. You can take out so much more. You can take out a hunter, basically, with just the death damage of the 2 Elixir Wall Breakers on impact. For a building targeting card, for me, that seems a little bit too strong. I don't call for an emergency nerf, but maybe a small decrease in the death damage. Next balance update. How do you guys feel on this one?
Yeah, so I have a pretty strong opinion on this one as well. I don't have an opinion on...
You have too many strong opinions, Tag. You need to lighten up on your opinions a little bit.
We like strong opinions here on the channel.
So my strong opinion is not about, hey, I think that this card should have an emergency nerf. I think that everyone will agree that it deserves a nerf. At what point, we don't know when it will get its nerf, but it should be nerfed in the correct way. If you nerf its damage, if you nerf its death damage, I don't really like that unless you're completely removing the death damage or you're making the death damage not target air. Because right now, I feel like it's too difficult to counter and not doing... I don't even think that the damage is really an issue. Even if you take away maybe 10% of its damage, it will still be a fundamentally overpowered card. It takes way too much to counter. If you drop a zap on top of it, then it's going to be 2 Elixir. There's no way to get a positive Elixir traded against the dang card. You can't counter it with skeletons. You can counter a bandit, which is 3 Elixir with skeletons. You can't counter Wall Breakers, though. So it's ridiculous that you can counter Musketeers, you can counter Electro Wizards, you can counter Bandit, but you still can't counter a 2 Elixir card. And you're forced to drop at least 2 Elixir, which is usually going to be a small spell. And what happens when you drop a zap on the Wall Breakers? Well, then you can't poison zap the Witch. You can't drop a zap on top of the bats if they go in for Miner plus bats. You can't go in for a zap on top of a Goblin Gang that's dispersed in the opposite lane. So there's so many issues that the Wall Breakers create just because they're fundamentally very difficult to counter at 2 Elixir. So there needs to be either a decrease in death damage entirely, a movement speed decrease, or some ridiculous, I don't know, some answer in the meta to counter it. The best thing that you can do right now is have Valkyrie in your deck for the Witch and also the Wall Breakers does really, really well, and Furnace, because the Furnace is able to kill the Wall Breakers, and then it also gives passive utility afterwards, allowing you to get chip damage on your opponent. So those are the 2 things that are really good. Also Goblin Cage, but those are all cards that are more than 2 Elixir, and if your opponent goes and drains you with a lot of Elixir with a Witch push that demands a ton, right? If you're countering a Witch, generally you're going to go in for a poison plus a zap, and that's 6 Elixir, man. So sometimes you just won't have the Elixir to counter the Wall Breakers, and when they connect to the tower, it's game over. It's incredible that they have that type of punishing power, where a Hog Rider for 4 Elixir or Ram Rider for 5 Elixir, man, if it hits your tower, that doesn't seem like it's going to be game over. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of damage, but I mean, it's also 4 or 5 Elixir, so if they earn that type of Elixir advantage on you, that's kind of bad. But if they earn a 2 Elixir advantage on you...
When you connect with both Wall Breakers, it's just the level of satisfaction is almost the same of like connecting with a giant skeleton, which it shouldn't be because it's so much more difficult to do. But you're like, yeah, that was a ton of damage. It always feels pretty good or pretty bad depending on which side of the arena you're on. What do you think, Knight?
Dude, I have an extremely weak opinion here. The thing, here's what I want to say. Obviously, I think you've kind of swayed me a little bit, talking about the negative. You're not being able to get a positive elixir trade. At first, I've been running the wall breakers a lot. I absolutely love it. I think it's a super fun card that's come out of the groundwork. It hasn't ever been used until this month. This card has been absolutely one of the funnest cards that I've been able to use. But everybody's been able to stop it pretty easily with a log or a zap. But you're right. It's not giving them a positive elixir trade, which I guess that's what they're going for. I never think about that. But the wall breakers, I think if they had a minor reduction in HP, I played the wall breakers on ladder as level 12 wall breakers, and every single time only one would get to the tower if gone unchecked. I think that would be absolutely perfect for them because only one would be getting there, and I think they could counter it easier. And if you're going to talk about negative elixir trades, then we have to talk about the Ram Rider. Only because that is the most devastating card as far as elixir trade-offs, way worse than the wall breakers, in my own opinion, to combat. Because whenever a Ram Rider is coming my way, I have to put down 14 elixir to stop it for some reason every single time. And I don't even know how I have 14 elixir in my deck, but that's the math that works out whenever I watch the replays. I cannot stop that thing. And everybody in my comments are like, hey, you could use Skeleton Army. Did you see a Skeleton Army in my deck? No. I usually am not running those types of cards to be able to stop it. I think every single deck has a good counter, an even trade counter for the wall breakers right now. I think just a minor reduction in their health would maybe make it happen so that only one got to the tower if gone unchecked. Otherwise, they could combat it pretty easily. I don't want them to over-nerf the wall breakers. They are super fun. It is so fun to play Cycle with a minor wall breakers. Any of those cards where you have even like an Ice Golem wall breakers. Super fun. Then you get the wall breakers to the tower, a ton of damage like you're saying, and you feel some satisfaction of the game, and they earn your respect. You know what I'm saying? I think it's awesome.
I agree with you on well, I don't think Ram Rider needs a nerf, but I see what you're saying in terms of her. I love
card.
Playing her.
Oh.
I love playing Ram Rider. It's one of my favorite cards to play just because you're right. It's great because I just love the snare ability and the way it can kind of take care of one-shot bats and stuff like that and combine. Yeah, I
have video of the Ram Rider stunning my balloon on the opposite side of the map. I am befuddled by that thing.
I love that.
You love that.
She's a beast. Yeah, I love playing Ram Rider. But back to the wall breakers, I agree with. I mean, the one thing that I my personal opinion again, is not by design here, but falls in between you guys a little bit, is where I see them as being. I see everything that Tag mentioned. You made a very compelling case of why they're an issue in the game. At the same time, I totally agree with you, NyteOwl, in terms of don't overdo the nerfs, because it seems like lately, and this is not a shot at the balancing team, but it does seem like we're going it too far in either direction. Like a card is dead or a card is so strong and they have to come back in and fine tune it again. So I'm very happy they're viable. They feel epic finally, but let's tone them down maybe a little bit, right? But anyway, let's move on to Fisherman, because Fisherman's a card that's still really popular, even despite the nerf, which really didn't address the main mechanics of the Fisherman. So I felt like, in a way, it was kind of a good nerf when it definitely did not kill the card. It toned down its uses a little bit, but maybe the tone down and the use rates and the win rates have to do with all the other crazy stuff going on in the meta too. It's hard to kind of dissect it. Tag, pro opinion, talk about the Fisherman, man.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm way different than most of the other pros in the community on the Fisherman. A lot of them don't like the card at all. They feel like it's extremely oppressive to play against. But for me, I actually even enjoyed last meta with the Fisherman. As weird as it sounds, I kind of range on NyteOwl's opinion of this meta, where, it was dynamic. It completely changed how the game was played. And at the same time, I felt like it was a higher skill cap card where it wasn't completely oppressive if someone was just spamming it at the river. Like, for instance, there were bugs that you're able to abuse with Snowball, Ice Spirit, and even counter it with simple Skeletons for a +2 elixir trade. So there are a lot of ways that it wasn't going to take your tower, but sure as heck would be very annoying on defense if you're trying to play like a Golem deck into it. Right now, I would probably... I would nerf its hit points, maybe slightly decrease its attack, or just give it a minor nerf, if anything. I wouldn't do anything radical because I think it's in an okay spot. Maybe another thing that you could do is change the amount of time that it does or it takes to rev up its pulling mechanic. So make it take a little bit longer to pull something. That's something that you could do. Reduce its range, hit points, attack, like anything. One small little statistic would be enough. I think it's just a very fun card to play, and that was probably my favorite card that they introduced into Clash Royale. It's made the game a lot more fun for me. A lot of pros hate it. A lot of pros at the highest level are like, this card is ruining the game and ruining the meta. But I think for most people that aren't at that level, and I think it's just really fun. For me, it's just a super fun card just to create content around and change up the game.
Yeah, no, NyteOwl, you go, then I'll go last.
I agree. I mean, I agree with Tag on this one, actually, because I think Fisherman's super fun to play. I think it's actually in a pretty good state right now. You can play against it and get those positive elixir trades that you need. It is frustrating when it's on defense and it's pulling everything which way and that way, and it's pulling things to the opposite tower, but it is what it is. That's the card that you're going against, and you have to face that reality and react accordingly. And I'm fine with that. I think it's 100% okay to deal with a card out there that's devastating, and you have to just learn how to counter it. And I don't think the Fisherman's OP this month as much as it was last month. And I think it's in a really good spot. Maybe if they reduced the range that it can pull things, it would be the only small thing that I would do. And I'm not talking a lot, just a little bit. Then I think it might be 100% perfect and good to go.
I agree with both of you guys as well, and I can kind of see where the pros are coming from in this one as well, but at the same time, just like you guys, you know, or I guess like one of you, one and a half of you, I'm not a pro, and I think the Fisherman is a...
Wait. Who's the half?
No,
Who's
you're
the half?
well,
it's got
you're
a Tag, right?
You know, you're the half pro, NyteOwl, and Tag, you can unmute. You're the half pro. Okay. So, dude, I think to your average player, or even above average player, or anybody who's not like at the very, very top 0.01% of the game, I think Fisherman's fine. And honestly, I want to go one step further, and whatever, I'll get some hate for this, but I don't even want to see it nerfed. I just think that I think that's a fun card. It's a dynamic card. It adds a new mechanic. I think that way back in the day, even when Miner was added to the game, another 3 Elixir legendary card, people were like, dude, this is broken, it's stupid, you can put it right on the tower, it ruins the game. And I feel like the same kind of reaction is being seen with Fisherman. All I know is one thing: when I play against the Fisherman, I never think like, game over, broken card, stupid. You know, I'm always like, okay, I can handle this, or like, or you know, like, it's kind of, and it hasn't, unlike the Witch, it hasn't made other cards that have a similar dynamic, like the NATO, basically the only card that has somewhat of a similar dynamic. It hasn't made it obsolete. You still see NATO all around in the arena, so I guess I'm okay with the Fisherman. I kind of like the Fisherman, but you know, at the same time, its win rates and its use rates inside grand challenges is pretty high, so there is that to kind of consider as well. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a nerf, but I wouldn't necessarily advise it, I guess. But let's move on to the last 2 cards. Before we get to the big fella, Tag's favorite card in the game, the Elixir Golem, let's talk about Executioner. That was the card that everybody was worried about last meta. Now, this meta, his win rates are fine. You know, doesn't seem to be OP from the metrics. What do you guys feel about the card? Knight, go ahead and go first this time.
Dude, what's the big deal? I mean, I think he's rocking it. He's doing perfect. Exactly what he needs to be doing. I don't think he was used as much. I mean, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, he wasn't used as much. Now he's used, what, like 45% right now? And he's doing great. I don't think they need to nerf him at all. I use him in my deck now. I've never used Executioner before. I think he's a super fun card. And the thing, they've reduced the range, what do they call that? His splash width or whatever. Help me out, Tag. They reduced his width of the amount that he can hit, so you actually do have to be a little bit more precise on the way you place him, and he requires some skill to play. Don't say he's skillless just because I play him, Tag. But don't say that. But I mean, he does require some skill to play. I've been beaten by many cards. You can counter him fairly easily, and he's not OP in any way. So that's the way I feel about him.
Use rates in grand challenges, at least, I don't know where you're playing, NyteOwl, are around 9-10%, which is, I think, is a pretty healthy range. Tag, what do you think? I'm like, 45% use rate.
Yeah, so
most of the time I don't know where you guys get these stats from, so I just make them up. So
that's perfect. Okay, I was wondering when you kept uploading the 100% win rate, 100% win rate, 100% win rate every day. I was like, wow, who's playing these?
Those are accurate.
Obviously. All right, Tag, what say you?
Yeah, so with Executioner, I want to like bring in an analogy here. If your room is like incredibly messy and you can't actually see everything, it's very difficult to make an accurate assessment of what you need to like where everything is, right? Like you can't be like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and figure how to clean everything up when you have to like clean up one thing at a time. You have to look at a small picture first before you're able to attack the entire mess.
Tag? What's going on here?
So
Your room is always very neat, from what I can see in your face cam.
yeah. So I really don't know what I would do with Executioner right now, because if I'm using an Executioner against Witch, quite often it just simply dies. It will attack skeletons, and its damage per second is abysmal compared to the Witch because it's literally targeting skeletons and it will not actually hit the Witch. Its range is just not that great. I would say at the highest level, it probably does need a little bit of a nerf, but right now it's one of those cards that there's too much clunkiness in the meta to even take a look at that and consider that. There are 4 huge offenders. They need to be nerfed, and there's one that is ruining the game. So if everyone's running a specific deck that is overpowering everything, it's really hard to look at the Executioner and be like, hey, I want to nerf this card, because there's just too many other things in the way.
Yep. All I heard is Tag wants to buff the Executioner. So that's all I heard there.
Everyone will hate me if you say that.
Yeah, buff Executioner, and he has a messy room, something like that, right? So
that's all I got out of that.
Yeah. No, I agree with Tag, actually, though. I think that he might be too strong, but we're certainly not seeing it right now in the Witch meta. So I guess I see both of your points. Like, we don't really know, but right now there's no way you nerf a card that is, has less than 1/4 of the use rates of the Witch and lower win rates as well, and dies head-to-head against the most popular card in the game right now in the Witch. So let's move on to the big purple monster himself. Tag, I think we already know a little bit about your opinion, but why don't you go ahead and reiterate exactly how you feel? I mean, listen, I'm going to play devil's advocate because I also think I've been saying since day one that I think he's going to be a broken card. But that's back when everybody was saying, like, at least 90% of my comments, it seemed like why would I ever want to give 4 Elixir back? But I'm going to play devil's advocate. Like, sure, man, it costs 3 Elixir. Well, we get that. Does a lot of damage. We get that. But you are giving 4 Elixir back. It's like a tower trade card, Tag. It's not meant to. It's meant to be strong when you place it, but then you get it back when you counter push. So what's the big deal, man?
Yeah, quit being a baby, Tag. Let us play.
Okay.
Just dang it.
So if you're playing essentially a Golem for 3 Elixir, and you have enough supporting troops behind it to kill everything, including your opponent's tower and all of their units that they defend with, and you still have an Elixir advantage after because they dropped all of their cards, and because they didn't have enough to kill your units, then it's a snowball effect. Because they're not able to kill it, they have to spend more Elixir to try to defend. If they're trying to gradually whittle away at your push, you can replenish your Elixir, and it's pretty much over. It doesn't matter if you take the tower and then you give your opponent 4 Elixir afterwards, because there's still units that they have to clean up, and there's nothing they can do about it. The card is the most oppressive thing in the game right now when paired with Sparky, Night Witch, and Fisherman. If your opponent is trying to defend with an Executioner, you go and pull it right into everything, the entire mess of it with the Fisherman. And then GG, it's over. You can't defend. If they try to use an Inferno Tower, guess what happens? There's Night Witch Bats. The Night Witch Bats get it right on top. It eliminates the Inferno Tower, and then you have 4 blobs that do an incredible amount of damage that you cannot clean up effectively. That will probably take your tower even if there's like nothing behind them at all. They're literally a win condition. Like the damage on those things are absurd. I don't even know what it is, but it feels like higher than skeletons, much higher. And it's just like there are 4 permanent skeletons on top of your tower doing damage. It just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem I don't know. It's the most frustrating thing to have someone completely horrible at the game drop supporting cards in the back, then go and
Wow. Here we go.
Elixir Golem at the river, and there's nothing you can do about it. I don't know what else to say. It's actually triggered me.
Yeah.
You could say it's awesome. Have you thought of that? The new
NyteOwl
mechanic this card brings to the game is so cool. And I am looking at Tag's profile right now. He does have Elixir Golem in his deck.
Oh, exposed.
Sure, I'm quote unquote recording a video. Sure deal, buddy. Sure deal. You are playing.
I'm going to title this video SirTag exposed.
The hypocrisy is real. Get out of there. I mean, sure. I mean, I get Tag's point. I get it. But enjoy it while it lasts, because unfortunately, against all of my wishes, they are going to nerf this thing. They're going to do something to it. But it's super fun right now. And if you can't beat them, join them. I got so much flack when I released my very first video on the Elixir Golem, because I was running Mirror and I was running Clone. They're like, oh, in the TV Royale, they said you're never supposed to clone or mirror the Elixir Golem because it's going to give them too much Elixir. What did we find out there? It overwhelms them with Elixir and absolutely crushes them.
You're making Tag's point.
I know. Like, and it's so fun. Are we playing a game? A lot of us aren't playing a game as pro players. A lot of us are playing it as fun. You know, like, it's exciting because it's fun for us to be able to take down an opponent in 30 seconds using cards we've never seen before. And that's the reason I love it so much. It's just because it's fun. It's going to nerf, sure. I mean, I think if they reduce the HP on those little bloblets, those cute little bloblets that are so lovely and dear attacking your tower, I love them so much. But if they reduce the HP on them just a little bit, actually, if they reduce the HP all the way through as it got smaller and smaller, I think that would solve a lot of the issue, because you could take it down quicker before it actually takes out everything that you own and your house and your dirty room. And then that way you'd be able to stop it better. But right now, I love it. I enjoy the crap out of it. What can I
say? Dude, I love your enthusiasm and your positivity, NyteOwl. But yeah, dude, I mean, man, I guess, again, geez, same old line, but I fall in between you guys. I like the card, too. Like, I don't hate so there's two separate arguments. Is he OP, and is the card idea the worst thing that Supercell has ever done in the history of Clash Royale, right? Because I'm seeing both opinions a lot on like social media and stuff. A lot of people say that the whole idea behind this card is just atrocious and stupid and game breaking, and I don't feel that way personally. Again, I know that it's not maybe a popular opinion, but I feel like I like the idea of having a trade-off card. It's cool, and it really does add a new dynamic to the game. And whenever we get a card like that, people always kind of balk initially and say, "Oh, that seems weird" or whatever. But I actually kind of like that. But I do agree with Tag that it is incredibly oppressive and meta shifting. I know a lot of my viewers probably don't even realize that right now because they've only had a chance to play it in the draft challenges, haven't been able to level it up for ladder, and don't necessarily play in a lot of GCs or CCs. But man, even on my tournaments that I host every day on Caffeine, follow me on Caffeine, guys, you'll see that, man, in the top 20 decks, I kid you not, I think that like 17 or 18 of them had Elixir Golem. It's really, and the ones that didn't were built specifically with just Mega Knights and Valkyries and Baby Dragons galore, to stop Witch and Elixir Golem and Bomb Towers even, so in a way, I like the fact that even the meta is shifting a little bit. We are seeing Bomb Tower, a top ladder, and stuff like that. But at the same time, man, those blobs just take a tower down. And the fact that NyteOwl said that you can clone and mirror an Elixir Golem and give your opponent 8 to 12 or more Elixir back and still 3-crown them and dominate them just proves Tag's point that that whole trade-off is not working. It's not working. So Tag, what do you think the answer is on Elixir Golem? Do you think that you have to decrease the damage or the HP of the blobs, or do you think that you have to tweak the dynamic of how much Elixir you're giving back to your opponent?
So I would change nothing about the Elixir cost, like the Elixir amount that you're giving back to your opponent. I don't think that they should move it to 4 Elixir either. I think that 3 is okay. I think the concept of the card is really cool. I think that the issue with the card is it's extremely hard to balance. And the way that I would try to approach it is I would try to make it a worse card originally, even if it's like eventually it's going to have to be balanced at some point. But I would purposely try to make it worse and then gradually make it better in slow increments. Because right now it is so off the margin and it is so oppressive to the meta that you need to make it like bad. Like otherwise it just dominates everything. Whereas the Fisherman doesn't do that. Like just another example of like how different it is. It doesn't take towers like this card. I would change the damage that the blobs do. I would also maybe consider it not breaking into 4, maybe just 2, and then giving like 2 apiece, 2 elixir apiece instead of 4 elixir individually. And then I would also maybe decrease the damage. Like there's things that they need to do. I don't know. I don't know if it will be viable if they change too much because it has to be so properly managed. It's just like a really difficult card to balance correctly.
Yeah, Knight, you already said you want less blob HP, right?
Yeah, I think that's going to be good. And it hurts me to hear Tag say to over nerf it. That's what they did to the Royal Recruits. I mean, they did that to the Royal Recruits, and we didn't see anything from them for like 14 months after they did that. And that sucked because I thought the Royal Recruits were real fun as well. And unfortunately, it just took them so long to get back around to rebuffing them to where we could use them again. I'm worried they're going to, if they do that to this beautiful creature, then we won't see him. It's got to be a him, obviously. I've seen some pictures. Yeah. It's got to be a him. Anyway, so if we see that happen to him as well, then we won't see him again forever. So I think some minor little tweaks could do the trick. And it's going to be, I think, a combination of HP and then damage, maybe damage nerf on the little bloblets at the end. Yeah, definitely a combination of both those things should do the trick, and I think we'll be ready to roll with the next month.
Yeah, I'm right. I'm with you guys. I mean, nerf him, but I wouldn't want to kill him either because I do feel for people who like upgrade him and then it gets nerfed and then you can't play him for a long time. But I will say one last thing about Elixir Golem is like, in what world is this card a rare card? Like, what is going on with the rarities? Like, not that it even matters, it's totally irrelevant, but like, wall breakers are epic, and the Elixir Golem who gives back Elixir and is a tank and is a win condition and breaks into blobs and costs 3 Elixir is a rare? That's
more complexity than any of the other rare cards out there.
Like, if any card in this game screams legendary at me, it's Elixir Golem, but whatever, they're not going to change a rarity, so I can say that safely. And you guys don't have to hate on me. But yeah, that was very strange to me. But either way, I think that wraps up our conversation, boys. It's been almost 40 minutes. So shout out to my viewers who are still watching right now, and shame on me for not giving you guys a bigger shout out at the beginning of the channel. I'll put a pinned comment to make up for it to you guys. But guys, if you're still watching, first of all, I appreciate it. Probably you treated this kind of like a podcast rather than watching every second of my face mulling over what Tag and NyteOwl had to say. But big shout out to both of these guests. You can check out SirTag and NyteOwl's YouTube channel and their social media all in the show notes. And links to their YouTube channels will also be in the pinned comment for you guys. Guys, thanks so much for coming on again. It was a real pleasure talking with you guys.
Yeah, thanks again, Ash.
No doubt, man. It was a blast. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. Shout out to Clash Royale and to Bren Chong, my YouTube partners. Check out their information as well. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care, guys.